Confidence is easy to fake. Power isn't. Most people don't realize this until it's too late. They walk through life feeling sure of themselves while being quietly ignored, talked over, overruled, and they never understand why. Because confidence feels real. It feels strong. It feels convincing, especially to the person who has it. But here's the uncomfortable truth most people avoid. Confidence without power doesn't protect you. It exposes you. It makes you visible without making you dangerous. It makes you speak without being heard. It makes you believe you're in control while someone else is deciding the outcome. Nietzsche saw this long before social media, before self-help culture, before confidence became a personality trait people perform. He understood something most people still miss, something that quietly shapes who rises and who gets used. And once you see it, you'll never hear the word confidence the same way again.
Most people confuse how they feel with how the world responds. That mistake costs them years. Confidence is internal. Power is external. One lives in your head. The other lives in other people's behavior toward you. This is where the gap forms. You can feel confident and still be dismissed. You can feel certain and still be overridden. You can believe in yourself completely and still have zero influence. Why? Because humans don't respond to belief. They respond to signals. Signals of leverage, signals of consequence, signals that say, this person matters in this moment. Confidence sends no such signal on its own. Think about the quiet person in a room who says almost nothing, yet when they speak, the room shifts. Not louder, not emotional, just precise. That isn't confidence. That's perceived power. Now contrast that with someone who speaks constantly. Strong posture, firm voice, bold opinions, yet nobody adjusts their behavior afterward. That's confidence without weight. The human brain is efficient. It's always asking one question beneath the surface. Does this person affect my outcome? If the answer is no, your confidence becomes background noise.
This is why confident people are often shocked when they're ignored. They assume certainty should command respect. It doesn't. Respect follows risk. Influence follows consequence. Nietzsche understood this at a deep level. He saw that modern society trains people to polish the surface, tone, posture, self-belief, while neglecting the underlying force that makes those traits matter. So people inflate confidence to compensate. They speak stronger, assert more, post more, perform certainty, and unknowingly, they reveal the absence of power underneath. Because real power doesn't need to announce itself. It doesn't rush. It doesn't over-explain. It waits, and the world adjusts around it. This is the part nobody wants to admit. Confidence feels empowering because it's self-contained. Power is uncomfortable because it depends on others, and that dependency terrifies people. So they retreat inward. They build confidence. They repeat affirmations. They sharpen their self-image, while the external structure, status, leverage, positioning, stays untouched. That's not strength, that's insulation. And insulation doesn't move the world. It just keeps you warm while decisions are made somewhere else.
Here's where most people get it wrong. They believe confidence creates power. That if they feel strong enough inside, the world will eventually agree. It won't. In reality, the sequence is reversed. Power comes first. Confidence comes later, as a side effect. This is why the loudest people in the room are rarely the ones in charge, and why the calmest person often decides how things end. Confidence is expressive. Power is selective. Confidence wants to be seen. Power doesn't need visibility. It needs positioning. Look closely at how real decisions are made. Not the public ones, the quiet ones. The deals before the meeting. The alliances before the vote. The reputations built before the introduction. None of that requires confidence. It requires access, timing, and leverage. This creates a disturbing realization.
You can be confident and still irrelevant, but you can never be powerful and irrelevant. That's why confidence culture is so appealing. It offers emotional relief without structural change.
Believe in yourself. Own the room. Be unapologetic. It sounds like control, but it avoids the harder question: what do you actually control? Nietzsche warned about this trap. He saw how people mistake inner conviction for outer force, how they confuse intensity with impact. The stronger the illusion, the more fragile the position. That's why people who rely on confidence react badly when challenged. They get defensive, emotional, loud. Because when confidence is all you have, any resistance feels like a threat to your identity. Power doesn't react like that. Power absorbs resistance. Power bends the room without raising its voice. Power doesn't argue, it rearranges incentives. This is the flip most people never make. They ask, how do I feel more confident? Instead of asking, why do people adjust when I enter or don't? That question is dangerous, because once you ask it, you can't hide behind self-belief anymore. You're forced to confront reality, and reality doesn't care how confident you feel.
If this feels uncomfortable, good. It means you're noticing something most people never question. Pay attention to what's shifting right now. Not in theory, in how you're reevaluating people you know. The ones who talk the most, the ones who stay calm, the ones who don't need agreement to get their way. You're starting to see the difference, and once you see it, you don't unsee it.
Power doesn't ask for attention. It rearranges the room without permission. Watch what happens in real life, not in theory. A discussion starts casual. Everyone speaks freely. Opinions fly. Then one person enters. Not louder, not dramatic, just present. The energy shifts. People start choosing words more carefully. Jokes soften. Statements turn into questions. No confident speech caused that. No charisma trick. That's dominance through consequence. Power works by changing what feels safe to do. This is why confident people often overplay their hand. They mistake expression for influence. They speak first. They speak longest. They speak with certainty. And still, nothing moves. Because power doesn't live in what you say. It lives in what happens after you speak. Who adjusts? Who hesitates? Who waits? That's the real metric. Look at social hierarchies. The person with power doesn't explain themselves. They don't justify decisions. They don't chase agreement. They pause, and the pause does the work. Others fill the silence. Others soften positions. Others accommodate. Confidence tries to dominate space. Power dominates outcomes. This is why confident people feel drained.
They're constantly performing. Powerful people conserve energy. They let the environment carry the pressure. Notice how real authority behaves under challenge. Confidence gets louder. Power gets quieter. Confidence defends. Power redirects. Confidence needs to win the argument. Power changes the rules so the argument doesn't matter. This is uncomfortable to accept because it strips away comforting myths. You want to believe confidence is enough, that self-belief alone creates respect. But respect follows leverage, not volume. People don't comply because you feel sure. They comply because resistance feels expensive. That expense can be social, reputational, strategic, but it's always external. This is the silent truth Nietzsche pointed toward. Hierarchy doesn't care about intention. It responds to pressure, and pressure doesn't come from confidence. It comes from position, timing, and consequence. Miss that, and confidence becomes noise, polished, convincing, and completely ignorable.
Here's where the mechanism becomes impossible to ignore. Power isn't about force. It's about perception of inevitability. When people believe an outcome is already decided, they stop resisting. Not because they're weak, because resistance feels pointless. That belief doesn't come from confidence. It comes from patterns, consistency, position, reputation. Powerful individuals rarely convince you in the moment. They've already shaped expectations before the moment arrives. This is why their words land differently. When they speak, the brain doesn't ask, "Is this true?" It asks, "How do I adapt?" That's the shift. Authority isn't persuasion, it's pre-alignment. Think about how people react to uncertainty. When outcomes are unclear, confidence looks attractive. It feels grounding. But when outcomes are clear, confidence becomes irrelevant. No one needs reassurance from the person holding the lever. This is why power often appears calm, even indifferent. Emotion signals uncertainty. Control doesn't need to signal. The mistake most people make is trying to look powerful. Tone, posture, language, they copy the surface.
But power is detected subconsciously, through what you can withhold, what you don't need to explain, what you can afford to ignore. The brain tracks this automatically. Who can leave first? Who can stay silent longest? Who doesn't rush to clarify? Those aren't confidence tricks. They're signs of surplus. Surplus time, surplus options, surplus leverage. Nietzsche understood that dominance lives upstream from behavior, before action, before speech. It's built quietly, then expressed subtly. This is why people misjudge intelligence so often. They confuse articulation with influence, speed with depth, certainty with control. Real power often looks slower, heavier, deliberate. It doesn't react instantly because it doesn't have to, and this creates a dangerous blind spot. If you train confidence without building leverage, you become visible without protection. You signal certainty without consequence. You invite testing. That's when people push back, interrupt, dismiss, and the confident person feels confused. They did everything right, but the structure wasn't there. Power doesn't care how you feel about yourself. It cares what happens when others push. And that's the line most people never cross, because crossing it means abandoning comfort and confronting where influence actually comes from.
At this point, a pattern should be forming. And it's not comfortable. Because if confidence isn't the source, if authority isn't performance, then something else has been shaping outcomes around you the entire time, quietly, consistently, without asking for your approval. What comes next is the part most people avoid, not because it's complex, but because once you see it, you can't blame illusion anymore.
When confidence grows faster than power, the system reacts. Not aggressively, not openly, subtly. You get challenged in ways that feel small. Your ideas are reconsidered. Your authority is delayed. Your words are acknowledged, but not acted on. This isn't disrespect, it's testing. Every hierarchy runs silent audits. Who can be ignored? Who needs to be managed? Who creates consequences? Confidence without backing fails these audits. That's why confident people often feel strangely exhausted. They're always pushing, always reinforcing, always explaining. Power doesn't do that. Power sets conditions once, then lets others adjust. Here's the part that makes people uncomfortable. When you rely on confidence alone, you train others to probe you. They interrupt, they push boundaries, they delay compliance. Not because they're cruel, but because nothing stops them. Power stops probing, not by force, by removing incentive. This is where manipulation quietly enters.
People without power learn to perform certainty to survive. They posture, they signal strength, they mirror authority. And for a while, it works, until someone higher in the hierarchy appears. Then the performance collapses, because power recognizes power, and confidence without structure is easy to spot. Nietzsche warned that modern culture produces this exact imbalance. Strong self-images built on weak foundations. It creates individuals who feel elevated, but are structurally exposed. The risk isn't humiliation, it's stagnation. You stay visible but unmoving, active but ineffective, certain but contained. This is the final integration most people avoid. Awareness doesn't make you dominant, it makes you precise. You stop confusing inner certainty with outer control. You stop broadcasting strength. You start observing leverage. Power isn't something you declare, it's something others adjust to. And the moment you understand that, confidence stops being a shield. It becomes what it was always meant to be, a side effect.
Here's the truth most people never admit. Confidence is cheap. Power is expensive. And the cost isn't money. It's attention, leverage, time. The invisible currents that shape what actually happens around you. If you chase confidence without building power, you're practicing an illusion. You'll be loud, visible, and irrelevant. Your certainty will be tested, and the world will quietly ignore you. But if you understand the mechanics, how influence flows, how outcomes bend before action, you see a different game entirely. One that doesn't require performance, one that doesn't beg for recognition, one that shifts the room silently, inevitably, almost invisibly. This is what Nietzsche meant. The people who seem untouchable aren't always louder, bolder, or faster. They're smarter in a cold, structural way. They've mapped the hierarchy, learned the currents, and positioned themselves so that the world conforms, not to their confidence, but to their consequence. Remember this: confidence alone can get you noticed. Power gets you obeyed. And obedience is the currency that moves reality. So the next time you measure yourself by how confident you feel, stop. Ask instead, what do people actually do when I enter the room? Who bends? Who hesitates? Who adjusts? That question is more valuable than 1,000 affirmations. It's uncomfortable, it's revealing, it's necessary. Because when you finally answer it, you're no longer playing the game by illusion. You're playing it by design. And that, more than any speech, pose, or performance, is what real dominance looks like. Subtle, unseen, unavoidable. If you want more insights like this, the ones most people will never see, silent dominion is where the patterns unfold, where you stop guessing and start observing, and start shaping outcomes in ways confidence alone can't touch.